Good morning. Welcome to the LeNora Faye Show, morning edition. I'm your host, LeNora Faye. Now, it's funny because when I was thinking of what I was going to call my podcast, which this video version is an offshoot of the podcast, I had the hardest time saying welcome to, or this is the LeNora Faye Show. For some reason, like it looks great on paper, it's really hard to enunciate. So, if you have heard the podcast and the way I say this is the LeNora Faye Show, I had to slow it down. That's the only way I could get the words out. And it's not like enunciation is hard for me, but just my name was a challenge. So that's the story behind the intro, and I'm not sure if I'm adding the intro to this, probably. Um, yeah, I think I'll do that. But that's why I say it the way I do. Unfortunately, there's no video of me doing that because I basically had to be a conductor. So I grew up well, as a kid, I was in orchestras. I was a violinist, and so I was in school orchestras, I was in college orchestras from child through teen through 18. And so, I'm not a conductor, but I had to like my arms were full conductor mode, getting me to say, "This is the LeNora Faye Show." It's the only way I could get it clear. So, it's getting easier. It's getting easier. Anyway, welcome to episode 2. I am still figuring out how I'm gonna make these like what am I going to call the show or how am I going to identify each episode? I'm still figuring that out because, well, as I said in yesterday's episode or in the first one, depending on if you're watching this in order or not, this is a 2-week experiment as to what I'm going to do. But I wanted to do something, so this is what I'm doing. So, first of all, liquid. I wanted to use my Alcatraz mug. I am obsessed with my Alcatraz Island mug. So I've been to Alcatraz twice, which is in I'll say Palm Springs. It's not in Palm Springs. It's in San Francisco, California. 2 years ago this week, I was there for a full week. That was my second time. Actually, I have a key. This is an Alcatraz prison key. I got so much merch from my last trip there. I love Alcatraz Island. I feel like I'm going to be talking about my mother a lot. Um, what I actually wanted to talk about today, or this morning, was just the romantic feeling of October. And I'm not in a romantic relationship. I'm not even in a casual relationship of any kind. And well, that's fine. I love the feeling. Like I love fall does not last very long where I live. Basically, we have the color changes. I mean, I'm on the Canadian prairies, and where I am specifically, it's winter and then it's 2 weeks of spring and then we have a summer period and then September was actually quite nice and then it gets really cold and then the wind blows and by the like it's snowing and there's no leaves on the trees by the end of October. Like it's so quick. I love the idea of like a long fall. Like give me fall from let's say October through February and then we can have winter from February through April. I mean, climate change in Canada does exist, but it's not where I live specifically. I mean, it could be warmer longer, but snow feeds into our lovely water. So anyway, I don't want to talk about that. Um, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I've been reflecting on my every 5 years it seems like I spend October in San Francisco. And so I was there 2 years ago. So this is not the year for me to go back, but I have the last time I was there, I bought as much merch as I possibly could that I could like pack in my suitcase back home. And so I have my Alcatraz mug, which I don't have right now, but maybe next episode I'll get that. And I love it. I love it. And I have a key. I have, oh my gosh, what do I have? I've got spoons. I've got an apron because when I cook, I don't use an apron. I didn't have an apron. And then I went to the gift shop at the end of the tour. I'm going, they have aprons. So I have an Alcatraz prison theme apron. I have, yeah, spoons. The cup. I've got a prison guard whistle. I have a prison harmonica. What else do I have? Oh, yeah, I have a coaster. I have something else. Oh, yeah, I've got okay. I'm going to say a word that you guys probably won't know unless you're Canadian. I have a toque. which is a beanie, a hat, a knit cap. We call them toques here in Canada. I mean, it's a common word to use in Canada, a toque. So to me, that makes sense. Beanie sounds weird, wool cap, that's really formal. It's a toque. If you're Canadian, it's a toque. So it says Alcatraz on it. I never wear it because it's not quite. I don't wear hats. I have some, but I don't really wear or a toque. Only out of necessity, which is probably like 7 months out of the year. But I wear wigs. You know what? Okay, so here's the other thing. Wigs are fantastic for to keep your head warm. So there have been times where I have been outside and normally like my day to day, depending on what phase I am in my life. Um, I generally don't wear wigs going out. Like I'm doing a lot of walking right now. And so I don't wear a wig for that. I have my natural hair. But for videos and for, sometimes I, dress up or if I'm doing something that I can be a little more like out there, then it's the wigs. But I learned last winter that they're so great when it's a blizzard or when it's like really, really cold. Wigs for me, wigs are more fun than wearing a hat or a toque. Anyway, I think there's some other things that I got. I don't know. Anyway, I've got a lot of Alcatraz merch. I love Alcatraz Prison. How does this stem with my back to my mother? I remember when I was 9 years old. This was when I was, so I'm from northern Alberta, Canada. I now live in southern Alberta, Canada, but I'm from up north, and not that has anything to do with the story, but California, like I had no idea where any of this stuff was. It's just, I had been to Alaska and Montana. We went for 1 month each to both of those states when I was a kid for family vacation, 2 years. And anyway, my mom was telling me about this prison that was on an island. It was called Alcatraz. And oh yeah, because we had gone to Montana. I think I was 8. My parents took me and my brother for a month on a camping trip in our motorhome. And it was really, really cool. And one of the things we saw was a prison. I think it was Deer Lodge, Montana. There was a prison that's a tourist attraction. And I got to see solitary confinement. And again, I had very little concept because I didn't grow up with the TV or anything like that. So I knew what a prison was, but it just totally fascinated me. And my mom was fascinated by that stuff. So again, I wasn't a lot like my mother, but I got some of her quirky traits, which is obsession with celebrity, which I talked about yesterday, and prisons and cemeteries. So it's not for the history, it's just the experience. So anyway, I remember her telling me about this prison on an island that was a tourist attraction, and it was Alcatraz. And I've truly rarely been called to travel. I that may sound weird. For traveling is such a big thing for people, and for me, it never really has been. There needs to be a calling or a deeper purpose, but though to that point, the first time that I kind of had whatever freedom I could possibly want. Which is funny. It's like I had all the freedom. I had the time and the money freedom. Where do I want to go? I want to go to a prison. Seriously, that's what happened. The first time I went, yeah, 2017. I had time and money. I could kind of do whatever I wanted. I was like, where do I want to go? And again, it wasn't like, oh my goodness, I want to go see all these places. And San Francisco popped in my mind. I'm like, well, what's in San Francisco? Why would I want to go to San Francisco? And I Googled San Francisco, and the first thing that came up was Alcatraz Prison. I'm like, done. So I went. And I've been back since. So I've toured that prison twice. And the second time I'm like, I'm getting all the merchandise because I think I had been the first time I wasn't able to see the entire prison because there was they were doing restorations. And so the second time, so 2 years ago, I got to see everything. I got to see the yard, I got to see the hospital wing, which was utterly fascinating. So I got to see the things that I missed the first time. So I felt that I'm not saying that'll be the last time I go to Alcatraz. I'm just saying I'm thoroughly satisfied with my Alcatraz prison tour experience. So I thought, well, okay, this is the time for me to buy all the merchandise in case I don't go back there because I don't want to buy Alcatraz theme merchandise anywhere else but actually from the gift shop in the actual prison on the actual island. So, therefore, an Alcatraz prison key, which I love and I keep in the background for these videos. Uh, Actually, you know what? The show's so random, but that's the point. This is a kickstart to your day, or maybe the close of your day. I don't know. Whenever you're watching this, thank you. Now this is really heavy for me to lift, so I'm not gonna lift it right now. But this is an A, this metal iron piece. It actually stands for antinatalism. Now I'm not an antinatalist. I'm pro-choice, child-free women. But I received this as a gift from members of the antinatalist community. Um, It was an award that was intended to go to somebody in India, but shipping was a nightmare. And so they said, well, they wanted to know if you wanted it. I said, sure. So I'm not a part of the antinatalist community, but I am an ally, I suppose. Anyway, that's an A, and I just realized that could stand for Alcatraz. It doesn't stand for Alcatraz, but it could be. Anyway, it's a really cool award, really cool thing. I love it. Very heavy. It's incredibly heavy. It's a really cool piece of art. Anyway, so what's on my mind today aside from oh yeah, the romance, the romance, prison and romance. I always thought, okay, so I've never been married. I don't know if that is, I don't know if it's something I will do. I don't care. I have felt I knew that I wanted to be because I like the feeling of romance, but I've never really allowed myself to experience romance n for a number of reasons. I just felt that it was stifling and limiting, and I did not want to get myself into a situation that I couldn't get out of very easily because I didn't want to spend my 20s and 30s that way. And the older I get, the more it makes sense as to why I chose that. But that's more of a topic for the podcast, not necessarily for this show. My point is I love the romantic feelings that aren't that they're kind of attached to seasons and not necessarily a person because people are fickle and I'm fickle and I can be romantic, I suppose, but I really have to be inspired by it or to do it. So this month, of course, seasons changing, the leaves turn really yellow really quickly here, then they blow away. We don't get all like the most beautiful fall colors like other places do, but we have at least green and yellow and occasionally a little bit of red. But I do love, and this stems from growing up north, just that, the smell, like the leaves are falling and then the way the air smells, and then air in Canada is generally really nice and it just brings back all these romantic feelings. Now, there was nothing about my childhood or that time period that I like it was romantic, but I remember as a little kid feeling like my life would be romantic, and my life has been adventurous in my way that works for me and I want it to be a hell of a lot more, but I am there's something about learning how to capture a sense of romance without attaching it to anybody, because the reality of attaching romance to someone, I think most of us watching this probably know where this is going. It's like, oh, what's in your head is like there's the reality and then there's what you have in your head. And that's not a bad thing because I am again old enough and I've had enough experiences to real and to understand myself to appreciate what romance and partnership could be, right? But I've never wanted to fo for it to I've never wanted my experiences to follow the status quo or to follow what people, well, yeah, the status quo, what's expected. I wanted it to be not necessarily unusual, but if it's right for me, it's going to be somewhat unusual. Um, and it just seems like American for me, not Canadian. Anyway, that's again something else maybe for the podcast. But my point is the essence, the romantic element of there's something romantic about October for me, how I feel. And for some reason, Alcatraz plays a part in that. There's nothing romantic about the island necessarily, but there's just there's I think what I'm trying to get across is that I love like I love embracing the quirky things, the things that make me go, oh my gosh, like I feel so warm and fuzzy. And society says to attach that to a person or to attach that to a certain experience that's, very hallmarky, but it's actually not. And there's something really freeing about that, and I love that. And so I think that's why I wanted to do the show right now because, I'm really, really feeling this sense of, and there's no outward reason for me to feel this way. And this is why I'm really curious about following this feeling. Currently, there's no outward reason why I should feel romantic, except for the weather outside, which is not quite frightful yet. Maybe in a couple weeks, but right now it's okay. It's chilly, but whatever. I'm always in a dress, rain or snow, usually snow. But I love exploring that feeling. And so there's that, it's not like a, oh my gosh, I need to go date because I don't do that. It kind of feels like a waste of time to me. Um, like just for me personally. But I go, so what's calling me to express these romantic feelings that have nothing to do with a human being or anybody else, like anybody that way? It's just, and it's walking in nature. It's creating this show. It's even doing the podcast. It's just realizing, and this is a scam of humanity. I'm going to say it this way. This is a scam of humanity. It's the feelings we have, and then we're going, wait, those feelings should only come to us because we have this person, or because we have this job, or because we're doing something, or because we have this, that, and like there needs to be, society has said we need to have a logical explanation as to why we're feeling the way we're feeling, right? And I'm going to talk about like happy, positive feelings. That's what I'm referring to in this situation. But right now, I just have this really incredible sense of romanticness, like just this. That's the only way I can label it. And it doesn't feel icky, so it's probably not romantic feelings because it's not about a person, it's not attached to a person. It's not even giving me a desire to go to ask for a person or to, I mean, that's sure, maybe, but it's not, that's not what it's about for me. That's not what, I don't feel that's the way to express it. So I don't have an answer as to how to express. I think maybe doing this video is one way because that's how I love this. This gives me a high feeling. It honestly does. And so that's where I'm going to end this today is it's about honoring what we are feeling. And this does apply to potential anxiety. Whatever feeling. I've gone through a period of really hard feelings. And I am someone who is generally optimistic and prefers to say, okay, no, shut it down. We're not going to dwell on that. And it's true, dwelling, but acknowledging and dwelling are two different things. So if it's a feeling that's icky for me, I'm coming out of a period of dwelling on those feelings and acknowledging them. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling this way. I don't like it. Is there something I can do about it? And I don't mean like physically, but is there something like what do I need to work through? But when it comes to something like this feeling of like this romantic, light, happy, in love feeling that has nobody attached to it, there's nobody on the receiving end of this. I'm like, ooh, I want to dwell in this, but I'm not going to seek something that society says, oh, that's why you're feeling this way. I'm not even going to ask for that. If it shows up, cool. If it doesn't, that's also cool. But I'm in this state of exploring right now, and because it's I'm like, I love this feeling. I want my life to resemble this feeling. But I also know that it doesn't mean that my life is going like the outwardness of my life is going to look like what other people are associating this feeling is from. To be a little more clear on that, if I'm feeling romantic right now, my instinct is like, don't go find someone to be romantic with. Like, don't do it. Probably because it might kill the feeling. If something happens where that natural like if that's a good match, if I am supposed to have romantic feel if I'm supposed to meet someone to have romantic feelings with or do romantic things with, and romance can mean a bunch of different things, um fine, but I'm not going to assume that's what that means. I like being this age and realizing that's because 20 years ago I would not have gotten that. I would have been like, oh, that means I need to be with somebody. No, it doesn't. And that's a really freeing feeling because the minute and I have not run away, but I really shut things down in the past from like, ugh, if this means what I think it means, then no thank you. I just like things to happen naturally. So, yeah. Alcatraz and romance in October. That reminds me. So I'm actually working on a podcast episode. By the way, the LeNora Faye Show is the actual podcast. You can watch it here on YouTube, and if you're listening to this on Spotify, that means I've uploaded these morning show episodes onto the podcast as well. But you can obviously listen to the show there too. Um, I am working at the time of this recording, I am working on an episode that I do want to label Thanksgiving threesome. So about the an experience I had in San Francisco. It was not on Alcatraz. And Thanksgiving is in October here in Canada. So, um, now I say that. Now you Canadians be like, well, yeah, I know that, but the majority of my audience is not Canadian. Probably because the majority of people I know are also not Canadian. There's a lot of Americans out there. Um, but anyway, I'm maybe that's why I'm in this. I mean, it's not. Is it? No, it's not romantic. It's exactly what it sounds like. Well, yeah, there are three people involved, myself included. Anyway, that's a good plug. Go listen to the podcast. Although that episode at the time this airs, I don't think that podcast will be out. Episode will be out yet. But yeah. So, whatever wonderful feelings you are feeling today, embrace them. And you don't have to associate it with one particular thing. Again, there's freedom in that in case the day does not go the way you expect, and which they often don't. But that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the feelings that we have. So I'm gonna go and feel romantic and go about the rest of my day, and I may or may not tell you about it on an upcoming podcast episode. So have a wonderful day, and we'll chat tomorrow.